Us here on Morning Prime. It is the 2nd of August 2023 and I'm glad that you're joining us today on Global Today, where we focus on matters diplomacy, foreign policy and security, just putting tails on the current state of affairs in the world and what is happening currently. I want just to update you as well that yes, we have Bahamas, which is joining Kenya on that consideration of sending police force in Haiti to try and, of course, clamp down on the gangsters in Haiti. And we shall be discussing that with the panelists this morning as well, and also the dialogue that now is shaking into place. Azimio is not throwing back, he's still on it as far as the issues are concerned. And we should be looking at what is happening with Niger right now. Other countries which are, of course, neighboring Niger are saying, yes, if there is any intervention with ECOWAS, then also they're bound to be sending their forces there. So they're sending their warning to the countries around us as far as interfering with Niger's politics is concerned. Also, we shall be looking at Senegal, and we shall be looking around here in our region as well, Sudan and DR Congo as well, and putting tails on what is happening with the Russia Africa Summit. What were the upshots from that particular meeting that was in Moscow? That will be on the table with the panelists this morning. I'm joined by Ahmed Hashi, who is a governance and policy analyst. Also, we shall be joined by Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute. We shall be joined this morning as well by Brigadier General retired Ahmed Mohammed as well. And we shall be looking at these issues as far as the current state of play of foreign policy, diplomacy and security is concerned. But before we go on, let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the bold paper. It is the Riot Act. That is what is on the front page of the Standard, as you can see it here. And I will walk over now to where my panelists are so that we can get down to see also and slice and dice what is in the dailies this morning. As I've mentioned, they're here, all of them, and we shall be joining them. Right, so this is what we have. Ruto reads a Riot Act. An angry and tough-talking president locks out cabinet ministers, PSs and top state officials for turning up late to his meeting at State House, warns clueless members of his administration that they will soon be on the chopping board if they do not deliver services to Kenyans. That story, you have it on page 6 of the Standard this morning. We have a job because we have a contract. If you cannot keep time with your employer, you have basically dismissed yourself. It is just as simple as that. I shall deal with the cases of negligence, misappropriation, embezzlement, theft, and other misconduct or corruption in relation to public resources. Some are really and decisively. This is what President Ruto said yesterday. Now, there's a special report where President's new radical education reform plans is now shaking into place after we had the task force or the working party delivering their report, head of state to personally lead implementation of radical reforms expected to redefine the sector, which he says is critical in building the country's human capital resource. The story is on page 2, 3, and 4 of the Standard this morning. Now, here are some of the key issues that you need to know. First of all, reduce subjects burden. Subjects for pupils from pre-primary to senior school defined and ranges from 5 to 9. We have also the CBC school to comprise lower comprehensive school and upper, that is senior school. We have end of national schools, scrap national, county and sub-county schools and replace them with career pathways, reverse capitation, new rates ranging from 1,170 being lowest to 22,527 being highest. Also fresh teacher training, teachers to undergo a 1-year mandatory retraining to align them with new curriculum. Also varsity college funding to be based on 4 categories, namely vulnerable, extremely needy, needy and less needy, and also on the merger of funding boards. All higher education funding bodies collapsed to form tertiary education placement and funding board with directorates, and also no diplomas, certificates in universities, phase out non-degrees courses in 3 years and create a seamless transition. Also merger of universities, government to develop guidelines for amalgamations. And also the last one there, Teacher Service Commission power shocker, surrender quality assurance function, cede regulatory powers to new body, principles answerable to ministry. That all you have it tucked away on 2, 3 and 4 of the Standard this morning. On the side, but DCI to probe Londiani crash funds scandal. The story continues on page 5, and suicide fears as doomsday cult deadline lapses. That story tucked away on page 10. Also, you have the Enterprise magazine coming in handy for you every Wednesday, where you get to learn about entrepreneurship. And just to zoom in, today they're focusing on steady ways to keep and build wealth. How do you do that? That is the story that you want to follow inside today's Standard. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself. The Daily Nation is up next. How school will change. How school will change. That is the splash this morning. And it says team proposes to ease the burden on learners. This is all about reforms. And we have, on the part of students, I read you all of this, but also it bears just reminding you as well, reduce subjects from primary to grade 12, abolish national extra county and sub-county categories, mandatory community service for senior and tertiary graduates, dress code rules for all education levels. On parents' part, bursaries and scholarship under one legal framework, reduce curriculum overload cost, a unique identifier for every child, 3 slots in schools, management boards. That's for parents. Let's see what we have for teachers. Retraining teachers who graduated before 2023. Also mandatory 1-year internship for education graduates. Teacher Service Commission consults Ministry on deployment and promotions, lower entry grades for pre-service teaching programs. That is for the teachers. On the state bit, we have the state will be raising capitation for students until senior school. Also quality assurance function solely under ministry. Review the competency-based assessment framework. Ministry exclusive role in running of schools. That is the bit of the state that they have to put all to maintain their part of the bargain. A task force appointed by President Ruto has recommended sweeping reforms cutting across all education levels, but largely addressing concerns about the competency-based curriculum that is replacing the nearly 4-decade-old 844 system. If implemented, the proposals will radically alter institutions of learning, and all that. You have the gritty details on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, KRA is updating systems to net new hefty taxes after the Court of Appeal lifted the ban of the Finance Act. Kenya Revenue Authority has reviewed iTax, the online tax system, to reflect the 2 new pay-as-you-earn rates of 32.5% for those earning above 500,000 shillings and 35% for the salaried pocketing more than 800,000 shillings. And you have all the details also tucked away at the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. T-Farm offers locals 560 million shillings shares. That is James Finlay. You can follow that inside Daily Nation. And the drug taking women by storm. It's all about matters reproductive health. And there's a question there. Should faith matter when raising children? That is an abiding question there. You can read all the details inside the Daily Nation. Let's see what we have on top here on the teaser. Riot Act, globetrotting and unpunctual CSs upset Ruto. And that is tucked on page 4. And Mandamano, father to bury 2 sons killed by police in Kisumu. A heavy loss for a parent there. 2 sons dying from the protest. You can read all the story on page 3 of the Daily Nation. People Daily is up next. Radical plans to reform schools. President receives report. Task force led by Professor Munavu outlines measures ministry should take in bid to improve learning and align it to career growth of children. This story continues on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And I won't belabor that because it just is a regurgitation of what is on the other dailies. But just to be fair, at a glance, there we have PP1 to grade 9 pre-primary, primary and junior school to be managed as one institution. And name change, the term secondary will be dropped from the current junior secondary and senior secondary school. And also learning areas to be reduced from the current 9 to 7 in lower primary and from 12 to 8 in upper primary. Junior school will have 9 subjects, down from 14. Senior school to have 7. And capitation in view of the realities of CBC, this will be reviewed as follows. Well, it's been whitewashed a bit there, so it's not very legible. But you have a national schools to go. Ministry of Education to discontinue the current categorization of public secondary schools as national, extra county, county, and sub-county. Instead, categories will be based on career pathways for senior schools. And this story continues inside the People Daily. New roles, quality assurance and standards functions will be moved from TSC to the Ministry of Education. Universities, government to adopt a sustainable financing model for higher education. This will combine grants, scholarship, loans, and households' contribution for different learners. That is Matters Academia. On the sidebar there, Russia-NATO conflict plays out in West Africa coup. That is the story that you want to follow. Burkina Faso, Mali hit out at ECOWAS over plan to use military to quell Niger coup. But Russia, France row is writ large. Now this is where it's really playing out also on Central Africa there. That will be on the table with our panelists when we shall be looking at the state of affairs in Niger. Now 1,000 sells eyeballs for crypto. Interesting. It's all about the Worldcoin. And you can see how people are really coming out in force. This was at Kenyatta International Convention Center, where young people were queuing yesterday to have their irises scanned in exchange of Worldcoin tokens worth 7,700. Despite warning from the Data Protection Commissioner, they were dispersed by police over security fears. This goes to tell you, or just to show the levels of unemployment in the country. If my panelists may just look at that, and we can also discuss this in terms of security, because this is a data protection issue where all your data, all your biodata is taken by this particular scan, and they're harvesting your biodata, and you're being paid 7,000. That is on the front page of the People Daily this morning. This is where I'm trying to raise the attention of my panelists to just look at that so that you can tell us more about this Worldcoin and how you go. You've seen this object in most of the malls. So how secure are they? And you can see the level of unemployment and desperation that we have with the young people trying to eke out a living. So for anything, they'll actually give out money or give out their identity. That is a story to follow inside the People Daily this morning. Right, moving on, let's see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of Taifa Leo. We just have it in full. Mawaziri boom boom boo. That is a splash there. Mawaziri boom boom boo. Ruto afichua maafisa wengi hawajui hata miradi iliyo chini ya wizara zao. Hawaonya vikali 12 mawaziri waliotia saini mkataba wa utendakazi katika ikulu ya Nairobi jana. And it was all about the performance contract. You can see katika hafla ya wakuu wa wizara kusaini mikataba, rais atishia kuwachukulia hatua maafisa wa serikali watakao zembea kazini. That story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo today. Watoto 27 wazozania bilioni 16 za keyboard. That is the story that you want to follow inside Taifa Leo this morning. Let's move on and we see what we have in the Business Daily. State eyes billions stashed abroad in extradition rules. That is the story that you want here. And you want to follow inside the Business Daily. Fugitives to forfeit entitlement to rule of speciality. Extradition crimes include forgery, fraud, piracy, amongst others. It says Kenya has moved to relax extradition rules in proposals aimed at making it easier to bring individuals wanted in other countries for crimes such as stashing ill-gotten wealth abroad to justice. You can read the rest of the details inside the Business Daily. Internet outage Ruto's 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots plan. That story continues on page 2. On the ticker there, let's just try and see what is there. Kere updates system to effective new taxes, and CECs flagged for suspect cash in foreign accounts. County government officials suspected of stealing and stashing cash offshore forced the Kenyan investigative agencies to seek foreign assistance in recovering the loot. That story continues on page 5. Millers and FAA clash on wheat imports delay. Wheat flour millers have warned of a further rise in the cost of the commodity and its products such as bread in coming months on diminishing domestic stocks, blaming the regulator for delays in approving imports. You have a story on page 14 of the Business Daily this morning. Right, we shall be also looking at the editorial cartoons. This is what Gara has drawn today. Russia, Africa. That is a Trojan horse. You can read or follow that particular editorial cartoon inside the editorial pages of the Standard today. What do you think about that editorial cartoon, Dr. Hassan Kanenje?
Well, that cartoon is actually a little bit confusing because I can see Russia presented in the form of some, I think it's a wooden thing.
The wooden thing is a Trojan horse?
Yes. So I don't exactly know what actually the author of this intended to communicate. And then there's kind of like an African house with some little babies. Are those skulls or are those what? You
have it inside.
Yes. Yes, I do. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing. I think what I would say is this second summit was particularly interesting, in part because it is coming at the heels of the conflict in Ukraine. And at the same time, I think Kenya conveniently, stayed out of it, at least from the highest levels. I think in line with what the president had suggested, that we should not be shipping every African leader to go, and just meet one president, one country. And so that's understandable from that perspective. But I think the Russians still wanted to demonstrate they still have influence, but also, I think, build some allies. I think from the summit, we see about 6 African countries were given grain, a lot of it. Kenya was missing out in the equation, and therefore we got nothing. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with the South African president. What he said is, this is not about Africa looking for a donation of wheat, but ensuring that there is supply on the global market, that Africa can be able to access grain as well as other essentials, for their survival. So I guess I will let Hashi decode this a little bit more for us.
Hashi can decipher.
You are the oracle maker. Can you please tell us what is happening?
Is it indecipherable for? It seems to be very indecipherable for Dr. Kanenze.
That's above my pay grade.
This is an old Greek story about the Prince of Troy, who stole Helen and went back to Troy. And the Athenians assembled an army, and they had come to destroy Troy. And it's a great epic story about the Greeks. And one of the things about the Trojans was that they very curious people. And so they built a horse and filled it with soldiers.
Yeah.
And the citizens in the middle of the night pulled the horse into Troy. And voila, the soldiers poured out in the middle of the night and burnt the city down. It's a Greek tragedy. And it is, I think, very concise because we know that there have been coup d'etats all across West Africa. Debal, I predicted these things this show. It's on tape. In fact, I predicted Niger's coup on the day of the coup. I think I'm getting really good at this thing. But to come back to this thing, so the Trojan horse is there, and the Russians are coming in as a panacea. Russians are not a panacea. Europeans are not a panacea. The French are not a panacea. The rise of terrorism in the Sahel, Debal, is not going to be defeated by the Russians. It's going to be defeated by a political process within the Sahel. I correctly pointed to the collapse of many states in the Sahel here on this show. And, day before yesterday, there was a coup d'etat in Niger. Debal, I don't think that we here on the panel are going to condone coup d'etat in any African country. And we support the ECOWAS to intervene in Niger because the elections and the democratic government in Africa is too precious, Debal, for us. But democracy for who, Debal? And democracy for what? These people support the coup. The people of Niger support the coup. The people of Burkina Faso support the coup. The people of Mali support the coup, Debal.
So the general, they've spoken.
They don't want the French. They want the French to leave, Debal. Because, for 500 years, Debal has, the French named the Cameroon, in Portuguese, is a shrimp. Nigeria was named a Niger by the wife of Lord Lugard. The Niger area, that's how the word Nigeria comes from. Debal, we are awash in the chickens coming home to roost about the history of our continent. And I agree with the people of all these countries in the Sahel that they should kick the French out. Niger is the 7th largest exporter of uranium to the Europeans. They light up their nuclear powers. It is the poorest country in the world with the largest resources in the world. And this is the basket case conundrum of our continent, Debal, that 80% of the 1.2 billion people on this continent who were not born before independence, were born after independence, are now standing up to and saying, what happened to us? And I believe it is not proper for us not to cover our words with chocolate ice cream. I think we should be able to be quite blunt about our political economy so that we can find solutions to that. What is happening in the Niger is not a coup d'etat, it's a coup de grace, a finishing blow.
All right, let's hear from Professor Peter Kagwanja. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So there is a Trojan horse, but this is really coming also after the Russia-Africa summit, just following it up briefly, and where we've seen also President Putin has downplayed sort of the gesture or the request from Ramaphosa regarding the resumption of the grain from the Black Sea.
Well, let me start by saying that what we are witnessing now is a continuation of the 21st century scramble for Africa. And the scramble for Africa this time is between the West and the rest, particularly the emerging powerhouses and resurgent Russia. And there's no, you can't hold back, but say that essentially Russia is one involved in the scramble, but in a more feasible way. There are many others. And what is at stake? What is at stake are what we call energy minerals and products. That's why Somalia, you will sometimes find it very difficult to stand on its feet, because there's so many interests that are entrepreneurs of conflict. They are likely to benefit when there's conflict than when there is no conflict. And I think We are back to the 19th century. You remember, I attended one of the conferences in Europe in the so-called strategic thinking. And what I carried home is, that was way back in 2014, is that Africa was now to be subjected to the same conditions as they were in the 19th century. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it is very difficult to deal with governments that have opinions and that can assert themselves. And therefore you need to instigate some form of instability, so that as you come benevolently to help Africa put their act together, you also is negotiating with those who are controlling the minerals. This is the situation we found in Sierra Leone with the diamond. This is the situation we found in Liberia. And it's not a surprise that what we are seeing now is the kind of a new bout of coups in West Africa and hitting all the countries. And I'm not sure there is anyone which is going to be left unscathed. Why the military? Because the French have not pulled out their military from the former colonies. And therefore, the military option is still on the table because they've not democratized the polity at all. Two, France continue to control most of those resources from their central bank. In other words, these are actually external dependencies of France. And because these African countries are meeting other African countries at the African Union, and we are now thinking as one people, there is distress within the former French colonies. And they want greater freedom, both to govern themselves and to benefit from their resources. That is Niger. Russia is now on the back foot because of the war in Ukraine, and it needs every strategic mineral and to continue with the war, because it has to win in Ukraine. Otherwise, that would be the end of Russia. So this is a do or die for Russia, and therefore the Trojan horse that you see there, I think there's a bit of propaganda. Because every country is coming with a Trojan horse. The Americans have the Trojan horse of development and democracy and freedom. The Chinese will have their own Trojan horse. The Russians have their own Trojan horse. Everybody is in this scramble for Africa.
Except us.
And so the question is, how is Africa supposed to respond to this? I think first and foremost, let's not have this crap of democracy, pro-democracy. So I know we have been very vocal as a country in condemning coups, which is good, because the Africa Peace, the protocol establishing the Africa Peace and Security Council does not condone. The new normative and legal framework governing Africa has no room for coups. But at the same time, listen to the voices of the people. What are they saying? They are saying that the presence of French military in these areas and the control of uranium in Niger. Niger is the fourth largest uranium producing country in the world. And a piece of uranium, just a small piece, will right this country for years. Because uranium is the most potent source of energy that there is in the world today. Somalia has uranium now, I'm told. So who is going to allow Somalia to stabilize? Finally, we need to start rethinking this concept. I'm now speaking aware of that my two colleagues, Dr. Hanenje and General Mohammed, are scholars of terrorism and so-called violent extremism. There is a sense in which the so-called violent extremism is being weaponized to cause instability in Africa. It is being, you see it in Libya, you see it in Niger now, you see it in Mali, and all these countries that have strategic minerals. Why is it that this so-called terrorism is concentrated in strategic areas of Africa? So the destabilization of a continent, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this is
it's a fact.
This is what we call, deja vu.
All over again.
It is deja vu all over again. We are familiar with this. So again, that's my take, that let's not focus on Russia like it's the only one. The European Union is there. The Americans are there. The Chinese would like to go there. The Indians are on their way, I guess. And possibly the Kenyans should also join the...
No, Richard.
I'm saying that with a tongue in the cheek.
Let's hear from Brigadier General as well. Mohammed, good morning. Yeah, so at least this is pretty familiar with you, the Trojan horse, looking at the military history as well.
Thank you, Diban. Good morning. I see this as more like Russia is saying, here I am, in that they see gaps in Africa, or issues in Africa, which they think that they can provide the answers to. And my concerns go back to not only Russia, but the Wagner Group when they came in.
Yes.
And it did across most of West Africa. And in fact, expanding that now, and causing a bit of concerns. Tied to that is the issue of coups in West Africa.
Yes.
In fact, our concern has always been why the former French colonies. It has been on and off, on and off. There are issues around that. In fact, almost all the French colonies have had military coups that have been there since independence. It has been really an issue of concern. Yes, coups are on the way to go, certainly not the way to go. You want a bit of participation in terms of elections around that. You want a good government and all that. But the issue here again is the fact that West Africa has been challenged in terms of insecurity. And we thought that the Sahel G5 will find an answer to the crisis in that area. Been on for a while, but not much has been achieved. Remember, even in terms of the Nigeria Chad issue and Boko Haram is still pending and still lying low, but again able to flare up if it so happens. But the biggest challenge so far, in fact across board, the Burkina Faso, the Malis, is insecurity, which again impacts mostly the population who feel it. And they feel it. In fact, to me, the generals are coming in, try and find a way how do we solve this insecurity. It is there. North Mali is still ungovernable for almost the last maybe 7-8 years. Spreading down. The jail is coming in. Burkina Faso is challenged. And all that has posed a big challenge. I don't think, however, that the military will find an answer to that crisis. To me, it was better to work together with the government and try and find a better way of addressing that concern. ECOWAS has tried. Again, they are challenged, quite challenged indeed, in that regard. And therefore, it requires maybe a new approach, how to address that insecurity in West Africa. Now, while we are trying to bring down coups and say it's not the way to go, it's a bit worrying that ECOWAS has said we will intervene in Niger. The two other colleagues, Burkina Faso and Mali, have said don't try. That is worrying. That is very, very worrying, because if they were united together, all as one group, as ECOWAS, they could bring about some change and provide order. But in this situation now, where there is camps and all that, it's worrying. And it's something that we need to watch very, very closely. But of course, as I said, that insecurity is something to watch in the near future and see that don't spread to other areas in West Africa.
All right, we'll have more meat on it when we get down to Niger in the program. But I want us also to look at the editorial cartoons that we have inside the Star and the Daily Nation. It's all about the CSS and the performance contract. Yesterday, we have Ozone, who has drawn here and is showing. We just have it in full. Incompetence is tolerable. Punctuality is where I draw the line. Talking about the two CSS that were locked out yesterday. And also we have it in the Daily Nation as well. This is the Riot Act that we have the Standard also talking about today. Regarding just the performance of the CSS and how angry and tough-talking President Ruto was, locking out cabinet ministers, PSs and top state officials for turning up led to his meeting at State House. Warns clueless members of his administration that they will soon be on the chopping board if they do not deliver services to Kenyans. And this is on page 6. What do you make of that particular editorial cartoon?
Why don't you ask Hassan? Hassan, how do you want me to reply? Okay, you can share your time.
Just generally on...
Well, on a light note.
On a light note. Excuse me.
It is not logical to take donkeys in a horse race. Okay, they may not compete very well. Now, I think the president is speaking to the fact of that as a public servants, and especially high-ranking, you need to have discipline, you know. And frankly speaking, we've had a lot of bad behavior when it comes to discipline and taking public service seriously. And if you can be late for the president's appointment, then you know, can you imagine as in how if your boss,
For some of the CSs,
you
this
can
is not
be
the first
late
time.
for, of course, not the first time.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
That says a lot about you. It says a lot about you. You know, when the president calls and it's in the president's your direct boss, you know, you are there at 4 a.m. in the morning, just waiting at the gate, you know. And to the extent you can be late, it says a lot. But you know, I feel for the president because he's disappointed that they're late. I think a lot of us Kenyans, we are not shocked that some of them are late because we, you know, while of course, you know, the president has a prerogative of choosing whoever he wants, of course, not everybody sometimes has the same commitment to be able to support your vision. And I guess at some point, you know, the president may have to take the whip and whip some of them, you know, back into the village, you know, so that, you know, we can also have people who can actually be punctual and people who can be able to deliver for the country. But this is something that has been seen, and it's not just starting with this administration, it has been there even some previous administrations, where people who are supposed to be representing this country, even abroad there, you know, they are late. Sometimes they don't even show up in those meetings. And if you're a Kenyan and you're there and you're expecting a Kenyan delegation, you are embarrassed because you keep looking around for your Kenyan flag that you're so proud of and you're not seeing it. And I think we need to start changing that culture to take public service very seriously. It's a privilege when you're given a position to serve.
Correct.
And you have to take it seriously.
Correct.
And if you are not capable of doing that, please can you get out so somebody else can be able to get in? Because it is this kind of complacency and laziness that is actually eating our country and standing our progress. And that is where we find ourselves in holes, whether it is locally, regionally, or internationally. Kenya is much better than what we actually give out there. And I think Kenyans deserve much better than what we're getting today.
In terms of representation, because we've seen also from the social media, some of these CSs, when they go abroad, they're actually, you can see them running around, trying to catch up the subway trains because they're not keeping time as well. So we wonder, even for those meetings that they go internationally, where now the president also is really curbing down on the travel, that one of the CSs was almost having a delegate of 50 people going for, you know, for one of his particular trips. That's why he's having really a stand measure to try and curb on this large entourage that we normally carry around when you're going for all these places. Do they keep time, even diplomatically, when they go to make those negotiations?
Mr. Ruto is a very astute politician. He knew these men and women would say yes to everything he says when he appointed them. You know, I'm a strong critic of the president and his government. And when he appointed them, he knew exactly what kind of people they were appointing. They're the Moses Courier of this world, Deba. I think that a president cannot read the Riot Act to the cabinet secretaries that he himself appointed, and he knew they were going to be late. So I sense a political hand in this thing as a politician. I think that Mr. Ruto is trying to create space for, you know, the Nusum Kate government that's coming. And this is a strategy of getting rid of many of the cabinet people in there. Mr. Ruto does not do anything, nothing, without the ruthlessness of power equation in it. And the government of yes people by yes people and for yes people here did those things because it is normal for them to do it. They are from the yellow band of the motley group of yellow people who were in the Mtars and in the counties Dabal, the Malala types in the government. Nothing is going to work in this government. I told you he's a one-term president. He's going to cannot bring the country together. And he's going to tear the fabric of this nation because Mr. Ruto has never been presidential. I'm shocked that he actually called Mr. Odinga to go and speak to them. So I think Mr. Ruto should not pull the president should not pull the wool on our eyes We know his cabinet was not competent. We know his permanent secretaries were not competent. We know they were pushed through parliament by the speaker by a writ of strategy. And I think that the government is going to fail on its policies because it doesn't have an intellectual class there that can do that job. You can see the foreign minister sending our police officers to Haiti. Even though I think this is a great thing because Haiti is the mother of all colonial and liberation struggles and the mother of African states. It's the first black independent state in the world. But I don't buy anything that the Ruto government does in any form or way or content about. And I think that there is some hanky-panky that is involved in this. And it was a good thing that the president locked those people out. At least he can bring in new cabinet members that can do their job.
So are you not really overbraining it when you say, oh, you know, he's creating space for Adusum Kate government? Adusum Kate government has not been the space of discussion.
My favorite cartoon is Pinky and the Brain. And I'm not Pinky. This is my view. Maybe Mr. Kagwanja has a different view.
All right, let's hear from that's his opinion.
I just like good phrases. when good phrases are said, well, it doesn't matter who says them. I like a government of yes people by yes people for yes people. I think we need to underline that. Whether it's relevant to us or not, it's important because that is what we should never have in any country. I mean, for crying around, we should never have a government of yes people by yes people for yes people, because that's the doomsday. Now, but beyond the doomsday, I also like, Hashi's fertile imagination.
It's very fertile.
It's very fertile.
I don't know what he's taking.
Fertile imagination. Predicts everything, including the coup.
I'm on the podium.
Yeah, he's on the podium right now.
Yeah. So Hashi has a fertile imagination, but I think it's not way out because he being on the other side of the aisle, he should be looking at the cracks and nooks that are beginning to emerge, where possibly is going to cockroach his way to the government. So that's okay. It's legitimate. But let's put the president's reading of the Riot Act in a broader context. I mean, for years now, and we must be very clear about this. For years now, we have been walking away from the ethos that make successful states, and we have done that almost deliberately and even excusing it. Some say, okay, you have debts to pay. So and so helped you to be elected, and therefore he or she need to be in the government. This was a key pillar in my government, in my election, and so on. And therefore, you pack a Kenyan government, I'm not talking about your government, a Kenyan government with people who have no merit. People who have no honesty. So the point is, how did Singapore and Lee Kuan Yew get to where, transform itself from a dusty island and a former colony to a super economy and a super country that everybody keep on talking about? They stuck to three values which are beginning to become elusive day by day in this republic of ours. One is merit. Why are we taking our kids to school and working and struggling to put them to the best school? I guess it is so that they can serve their country better, and that they will have that opportunity to serve their country. And therefore, when you pack a government with the people who have no merit, then leading a Riot Act has its own problem. So I'm not agreeing with her, but let's see a Mechuki getting late.
Mechuki is a great minister.
Yes, let's get Ouko getting late to their cabinet.
Yeah.
Right? Let's get Mohammed, Mohamud and other great men who have worked this country. And we have them in this country.
Yeah, we have.
So there is no need. The first thing is address the disease, don't address the symptoms.
Right.
And the disease here is that we need to build this country on the pedestals of meritocracy, honesty or integrity, and we need to be flexible. We don't need to see, because we are hustlers, only hustlers can govern this country. And because we are, we are Azimios, only us can govern this country. And because we are Kano, only us. Because we went to Kangaru High School, like me and Muturi, that we are only people who are capable of governing this country. Because we went to St. Mary's, everybody in the school must be packed. These local things are what the Greek philosophers were talking about when they talked about three categories of people in a polity like this one. Yes. The idiots, the tribalists, and the citizens. We have a responsibility as Kenyans to produce a citizen, not an idiot and not a tribalist, with local ties. So in this particular case, first and foremost, do the people who are kicked out, did they have merit to be where they are? Do they even know what a cabinet is?
So
and what the responsibility is? I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just putting it. I know where you're coming from.
You agree with me. You're trying to not agree with me, but agree with me.
But what I agree with you is that we don't need a government of yes people, for yes people, and by yes people. Yep. That I agree with you.
All right. In terms of keeping time, Brigadier General, I know, for military position, how then would you treat the soldiers who don't keep time? Or that never happens in the boot camps?
Thank you,
it's a true reflection of what also we normally bring to life as well.
For us, it's unheard of.
Unheard of.
It's unheard of. It's not there.
It's not there.
Either you are not late but absent, totally absent, but not coming late because that's some consequence. So you are totally absent. In fact, if you are so late, better stay away and prepare for the consequences. But coming back to this, we are actually 1 year into our elections. And I'm sure the president has looked around and seen what is going on. And there is need for order. And therefore, that order must come at some point. At some point. A lot has been said about who we are, those who are serving in government, how we are serving and all that. There are big issues and challenges in that. Big issues. And I like what first said about Lee Kuan Yew and all that, the issue of patriotism, meritocracy and integrity, which we are very far from. In fact, we are so far from that, that we actually don't serve citizens. Those in positions don't serve the citizenry. They are there to serve, apparently, their own interests, which is their own way to go. So what we need is this order from the president. Start with this in terms of discipline and time, observe time, and then, ideally, those who were there yesterday should be able to cascade this down, all the way down, across their ministries to the end. And in doing that, we must be driven by the fact that we are appointed to serve the citizenry, not ourselves. And in that, it's very challenging. And to me, for the president, really, the issue is start looking at each and every individual you appoint. In fact, the issue of the wrong person, I don't worry about that. What worries me is look at him in terms of performance. How is he doing? How is he behaving? How is he producing? Now, yesterday it was performance contract. How do they measure in terms of that performance contract? How do they deliver in terms of the citizenry? The rise in the population, making noise, is because of that lack of service. If every ministry went down and did what is required, the president would have been safe. But unfortunately, we don't do that. We don't seem to be serving as required. We need to go back to the drawing board. In fact, to me, those appointed are political appointees. Below that, you have civil servants who are professionals. Even if you are very poor, if you go down and employ these people properly, who are professionals, they'll deliver. But when you yourself don't observe time, you are not there to serve, you're not even available to be seen to do things, as the vice president yesterday, that most of them are just traveling up and down. No, we need order. And I want to believe that performance contract will make a very big difference. And for what I want to advise the president is, please carry a big stick. Anybody not delivering, knock him off. That is the challenge. Service and delivery to the people. If you don't deliver, you can't blame him.
So who will be the best who will be the best persons to gauge? Is it with the performance contract, also from the Wananchi side of it, because we are the people who see the effectiveness that is coming from this particular ministries as well at the end of the day?
Just a quick one on that, and I support what General is saying. And I don't want us to be seen as negatively critical. We all have a stake in this country, and we live here. we were born here, and possibly we will die here, and our children will grow here, grandchildren. So take us from that point of patriotism. Is a critique for patriotism. Now, when you talk about performance contract, just think of a race, and there is a record to be broken. The record to be broken is the horse race, right?
Yes.
And then in a horse race,
Yes.
you put a donkey. How are you going? Why do you need a performance contract?
See, that what I say.
You're still going to fail.
The donkey will not make it.
But you need to give someone a chance as well.
No, it's not about a chance. This country is on competitive, examinations. Our kids are waking up at 3 a.m. so that they perform well in the KCPE and to perform well in the others.
Yes.
Parents are at pain to take their kids to the best schools, Harvard, Oxford, and all. And not in one region, across the country,
Yes.
from the north to the south. People are actually going out of their pockets as communities, as clans, as families, to contribute so that one of their own will merit. Then all of a sudden, we have a horse race, and you stick you put in a few three or four donkeys.
I think it's not.
What are you going to do?
It's not fair to actually drop. But it's not.
Don't mention names.
It's not fair to drop names.
Right.
But the most important thing is, let's get facts as they are, and the truth be said. If you put donkeys in a horse race, don't give them performance contract, because we know what they can do and what they can't do. And I'm not saying that academic is the only criteria for governing. No, not really. Boy did not go to school. Michuki never went for a degree.
Yeah, and he was the best minister
among the best. The point is, we know who can and who cannot perform in this country. We know, but the way we are getting to the elections, and during the elections we are talking about loyalty.
Yeah.
Loyalty is everything. That's what we were told. Loyalty is everything. Now, if that is the principle we are going to build this country on, then forget achieving the goal of Vision 2030.
Yeah.
We can never achieve it under those circumstances.
No, it is Dr. Khanenje that will come back to.
Yeah, the example of putting donkey in a horse race were my words, and prophets used them without acknowledging me. Why are you plagiarizing me?
Plagiarism.
I know. This is unacceptable.
Citation has to be there.
Citation has to be there.
Yes, I agree. No, I had a footnote in the written text. I had a footnote. But you see, you are not supposed to read footnotes in speeches.
But you remember also there was a story of Jaramogi Odigo Oginga one time. So we went to the podium and he was reading a speech. Then he began, I, Paul Muite. Then he realized this is the wrong speech. Oh, wrong speech.
He was an old man then.
We'll have something for him as well from 1966, where he resigned. All right, Dr. Khanenje.
Kenya has one of the largest reservoirs of very well-trained persons. They've succeeded everywhere where they go in the world. Some of them are even serving in foreign governments and helping those governments in Southern Africa and elsewhere. And to the extent that we've actually put meritocracy in the backseat, and at the same time we are aspiring somehow to become an advanced country, it's a contradiction. And it's an irony that we need to come to terms with. You see, you cannot hope to cross a river, but at the same time, you're not doing anything about it. Literally, you're running away from the banks of the river. It's not going to happen. You need to be able to build a boat to do that. But that is not what we're doing. And we've come almost to start celebrating mediocrity in this country. And we, in fact, reward mediocrity. We don't reward merit. Anytime we see merit, we're threatened by it. When we see merit, we start thinking this is something, kind of out of the outer space or something like that. And the more we've done that, that kind of mediocrity is cascaded downwards. So you find an entire department is literally full of people who are incompetent. The few voices who are good Sometimes they don't even want to stay within public service, and so they get discouraged because sometimes there are very few opportunities for social mobility in terms of what are the upward mobility in terms of promotions. So they even leave the service. What other people do in the world, and when you look at advanced economies, is people take public service seriously. And a lot of times, some of the best persons and the most knowledgeable persons are actually found within the public service. But then people don't go there as a way to make money. They go there to actually give back. And that is why an average public servant across the world is not very rich. But that's kind of the opposite
Here.
here. And we should ask ourselves, what is it and why?
Indeed. And just to move on with that, we have the Prime Cabinet Secretary also saying that even for the state parastatals as well, we'll have the inspectorate of state parastatals investigating them. We've always had this office, but we've never known even who is the inspectorate of the state parastatals.
Yes, about these,
who is it?
I've worked in government, and the most important thing in government is the character of the person. I was a strong critic of John Michuki in 2007. And I was very young. But I came to appreciate that man in really... He had fish in the Nairobi River. I mean, he was very disciplined, and I'm that kind of person. I'm very strong. I feel discipline is very important. Performance is very important. Accountability is more important. But the most important thing in any office is the character of the person. We just named Lee Kuan Yew. What the miracle that he created over there was based on the character of the person. I don't agree with Lee Kuan Yew conservative right-wing politics, finance, capital politics. I might not agree with it. But what I do agree with is the competency of his character and the firmness of his vision and the ability to walk that road. Debal, I think that the character of our government and the appointees, Debal, everybody knows who they are. We all know that our country is corrupt to the bone. The president was just talking about someone in the Ministry of Roads who has been there for 50 years, who's extremely rich, and no government has been able to get rid of them. You know why? Because she went to court. And guess what's going on with our voodoo judiciary? They are on the take, Debal. They are on the take. It is common knowledge in this country that if you steal $1 billion, half the billion will go to the judiciary. And you can keep the other 500 billion. So if the very corruption, if the very nature of our corruption demand is based on our character, and the day we expunge that kind of corruption from our character, and we lead from the front, and we say we're going to transform our country and our region, and we're going to bring it together, and we're going to have proper leadership, then Debal, we're not going to have a Secretary of Investment from the United States coming to our country and refusing to meet with the trade representative of this country. I mean, Debal, if I was the trade representative in this country, I would resign because I would be embarrassed. I would feel shame. I would feel like my character has been besmirched. And this concept of having shame, Debal, and being shy are no longer part of the lingua franca of our country. What is there is make your money and walk away and build your house in Karen. Every other election, Debal, after the election, there are houses being built in Karen. After the transition, there are houses being built in Karen. Debal, it's the people who originally lived in Karen like me have moved out. My grandfather founded the damn place. We left. Yes. The people from the subalterns are the ones who are coming in to stay there. So Debal, what we have to cure is corruption. And if we cure corruption, if we put in jail 10 of the biggest names in this country, and we have an independent president who can walk that talk and walk that line, Debal, corruption as we know it, we will end corruption as we know it.
Thank you. All right, we need to stop at this. And of course, when we circle back, because now it's 7 o'clock on the nose, we need to take a station break. We'll be looking at this editorial cartoon here that it's all about now where we are as a country as far as security, political stability is concerned. And this is what we have Stanon that he has drawn for us today. Let's or let the talks be about me. This is what Wanjiku is saying, right? Not about Ruto, not about Raila. Let's let the talks be about me. We shall be looking at this as well, where we are and how that is bound to change the political tone and tenor. Right now, we are coming from a very polarized place as a country, and everyone was really gagging for and agitating for